Subsequently, I think the big national story today is Oregon, and that Austin Novosad left Baylor's commitment list, committed to Oregon last night, and a guy they've had committed since September, maybe even a little bit longer than that, is now gone and off to Oregon. And Craig, as much as you can, say the good things about this class, the one thing everybody remember is losing Austin Novosad.
Yeah, I mean, for right now, for today, that's what they're going to remember, of course, because that's the fresh news. But he didn't commit in September, Paul. He committed in December of last year. Okay. He committed December 16th of last year. He committed over a year ago. So, yeah, this wasn't like a guy who was at camp and committed and then they lost him at the end. This is a guy who they had this time a year ago, didn't recruit really any other quarterbacks, and went all in on him, and that was ultimately a mistake. And, here comes Oregon, who loses their quarterback commit to UCLA, and they've got money to burn, and they've got, a coach that he's familiar with, and they've got some juice from the season that they're coming off of, and they've just got a lot of things, including good timing. And so they're able to flip Austin Novosad over the last few days. I mean, Dave Aranda was just at his house talking to him, less than a week ago and trying to lock things down. I'm not sure how much of a perspective he had walking away from that on the likelihood of this happening, but he had to have had some idea, you'd think, but it's too little too late to really do anything about it. They didn't have any other guides. There's no option B. I mean, there was no option B because of option A as in Austin. He's got his own choices to make, and that's the risk that they ran with recruiting him the way that they did. And so they lose him, and Oregon's gone, and I've seen, done some damage elsewhere. So it's not like this is just, the one big get on the day for them. They've gone and, had some other, big-time pulls. So they're clearly, going all in on signing day and making some big splashes, and you can chalk that up to whatever you want to, whether it's Lanning, NIL, Will Stein, whatever. They're putting the work in and getting results. So good for Oregon on the one hand, and then for Baylor, yeah, it's a bad deal. We got over it pretty quickly after talking about it. We had to get it out there because it was obviously a big story, but, at this point, it's whatever. I mean, they're going to sign 20 guys, 21, 23 counting transfers, and they're going to obviously – let's just get this bowl game over with tomorrow, and then we can all go from there and see who he hires as defensive coordinator and who they pursue. But, just a bad blow, part of recruiting, part of the deal. I've seen worse, quite frankly, even though this is pretty up there in terms of Baylor things that I've seen. And they're without a quarterback in this class, and it's the second class in a row without a quarterback. Right now they've got one scholarship quarterback, Blake Shapen. And heading into the offseason, they've got one scholarship quarterback in Blake Shapen. So that can't be the situation in spring. And they not only need another guy, they probably need another two guys. And so if you can't manage keeping guys on, that's going to be easier said than done, as convincing two players that, one of them you could say, oh, well, you'll be the guy once he leaves, or you'll have a chance to be the guy. But how you pitch two guys, and they're going to have to. I mean, they need the depth. That will be interesting to see.
Yeah, it really is. And, look, the story nationally today, Baylor is caught up in it, but it is Oregon. I mean, Oregon has done this to now a kid who was going to Notre Dame in Bowen, and some Texas guys in this as well. They've done it with a player going to LSU, and they've done it with a player going to Oklahoma. So they have done, they have flipped three or four different guys today, maybe even more, with maybe more in the offing, that are all going to big schools. So I understand the woe is me from Baylor fans right now, but Dan Lanning and Oregon are hot and making noise today in the recruiting world. I think that's the big story of the day, is that they've been able to swoop in and grab some of these guys, beginning with Austin Novosad. And so, we'll see, how it turns out for Oregon and everybody down the line, because this is the day of hope, right, Craig? This is the day where it's either hope or, you're sad about whatever. But, 365 days from now, half of this means nothing, because the cycle starts again with the transfer portal and everything else. Yes
and no. It starts over, but it doesn't really. it starts over with a new class, but like your program's not going anywhere. Your program doesn't hit reset every year necessarily. So Austin Novoside's in the Oregon program now. They lost the quarterback in Moore to UCLA. They got a new one in a few days. Mm-hmm. Baylor lost the quarterback, and now what do? They don't wait till next year to hit reset. So I mean, it's not exactly like that. It's a little bit more problematic for Baylor. I mean, yeah, from the Oregon standpoint, I mean, yeah, you celebrated and you're happy that you got Austin Novoside and you got some other big time guys today, Mateo Uangalele, and I'm probably butchering that a little bit, but big time edge rusher, 5-star. They got him out of California. They got some others as well that joined the fray this morning. So it's a boon for them. And again, you chalk it up to whatever area you want to, or a combination of things that are working in their favor, and they're taking full advantage. And that's why they've got a top 10-ish recruiting class, and Baylor's at the mercy of one of those decisions, and unfortunately for them, the class was built around the guy who flipped this morning. Now, thankfully, it didn't seem to have any effect on the rest of their class, but I mean, like, this is the thing I have a hard time with, though, is like, you give props, but like, to what extent do you give props? Like, you did a really good, like, who did a better recruiting job on Austin Novoside? Technically, Oregon at the end, but how? Like, in a week's time after they lost a guy versus Baylor, who recruited him the entire way. Well, Oregon won the fight, so they recruited him better. Did they recruit him better, or did they just swoop in at the end and steal him away? And they still get credit for that, but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a tough pill to swallow, because the relationships and all those things, I mean, they had him under lock for a year, and on National Signing Day, he decides to change his mind. Of all the times that he could have done it, the trips to A&M, the trips to Ohio State. Look, it's part of recruiting. It is what it is. I don't want to dwell too much on him. Give Oregon their props, but I'm not going to act like it was all like just old school. They hit the visits. No. They found a diamond in the rough, and they were on him early. It was none of that. It was whatever you want to chalk it up to, NIL, Dan Lanning, the brand, what have you. And so their gain is Baylor's loss for sure. But they're going to end up with a top 10, top 5 class when all is said and done. And Baylor's going to have to, scramble and, again, get this bowl game out of get the stupid bowl game. I mean, I say stupid bowl game. It's a game they need to win, but it's so in the way of everything. It's tomorrow night. It's like signing days right now. You wish you could just flip the page to what's next, but what's next is the bowl game tomorrow night. So that's going to be a big relief, I think, when they get that one out of the way and can kind of refocus, because there's nothing you're going to do in the next 24 hours that changes the loss of Novoside. So
no, but one